Hello, everyone. Welcome to Why Wellness. I'm Gina Rose, a certified personal trainer and fitness nutrition specialist, and I created this platform for so many of us to share our why. Oftentimes, we hear this buzzword question in the health and fitness industry, and I couldn't think of a better way than to compile our stories right here on my podcast, Why Wellness. We're here discussing inspiring, relatable, and motivating stories from health and fitness professionals across various platforms. Please subscribe, rate, and share my podcast. It would mean so much to me. I can't wait to share this next episode with you. And welcome back to another episode of Why Wellness. You guys, today I have the biggest guest of the podcast, Dr. Jen Esquer, better known as Doc Jen Fit. She and I met through the Oxygen Magazine Challenge, and I could not be more thankful for her to be here today. She is not only a physical therapist, but really focuses on eliminating pain and injury and helping people move better. She's the creator of the Mobility Method and her own podcast, The Optimal Body. So she's also on the Women's Health Magazine advisory board, and she is just so awesome. I love everything that she does, especially because I resonate so much with the fact that she preaches slowing down and really focusing on that mind-body connection and being functional in your movements, which I could not agree with more. So please help me welcome in Dr. Jen Esquer. Yeah.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I was totally surprised that you even said yes. So I appreciate your time.
Of course.
We'll just dive right in. So my podcast it's called Why Wellness. And the reason I started it is because I wanted to tell stories about like the backstories before people, started doing what they're doing in their fitness and health and business stories, and just really kind of understand what was that turning point in their life. For me, it was sort of I fell into fitness. It was something that filled a void for me in like a really difficult time. And I just think that people always have great stories that aren't always told. And I like to start off with that. So I'm excited to learn about your story, about how and why you kind of chose or fell into fitness and physical therapy. And from the very beginning, was this something that you always saw yourself doing? Or if you can take us through that story, that would be great.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited to do that.
Okay.
So I really, was introduced to movement just because it was a part of life. So I'm so grateful that I had that example growing up. So we got a boat probably when I was around 7 or 8, and I was pretty young. And so every summer, then we would go to the lake and do like a week at the lake where we learned to water ski or wakeboard or do something active that way. And then we'd always go to the snow every winter and we would learn to ski or snowboard or anything like that. We went on family walks. I saw my mom running all the time. I can remember like riding my bike next to her as she's running. And it was just a part of life. And I have to say that I'm just so incredibly grateful that I got to see that that's not something you have to do. It's not something that is to tear down the body. It's really a part of life. And I was required to be in a sport all growing up. So that was kind of like my parents' requirement, be in a sport, play a musical instrument, kind of like the discipline, I would say, in that aspect. And once I tried a bunch of different things and I fell in love with gymnastics. And once I fell in love with gymnastics, it became something that I didn't want to let go of. And so even like my parents would be, well, if your grades are going to slip, we're going to pull you out of gymnastics. And I'd be like, no, I'm good. Like I'll do what I need to and work extra hard. And if I was ever sick and they'd be like, well, if you're not going to go to school, you don't go to gymnastics. And so it was always this, well, okay, I'm fine. I'll do both because I had such this love and passion for what I felt in gymnastics. And it really, I don't know if it was just the community aspect of going in and having this amazing team that really supported you through challenges and through scary skills and all of this stuff, but it felt different to me than any other sport. I tried softball, I tried soccer, I tried dance, I tried different things, and nothing really resonated with me like gymnastics did, even though it's scary a lot of the times. And so I quit when I was 16 and started coaching it, and then stumbled upon Pilates because someone was coaching or teaching Pilates at the gym that I was at. And so that was fun, just to be able to be in that environment and learn and challenge my body in a whole new way. I mean, what I loved about gymnastics is really being able to control your body. And what she taught me within Pilates was being able to understand where that control really comes from. And so she would get down into those little minute, tiny muscles that you don't ever think about, And it reminded me of gymnastics because of the control and the holding and the breath patterns. But it also just challenged me in a whole new way and kept me learning. And from there, I just knew that I wanted to do something with the body. I didn't quite know that it was going to be physical therapy as I was going into undergrad, but I did know I loved kinesiology, the study of human movement. I was obsessed with anatomy. I wanted to learn more. And as I started to help at a physical therapy clinic, I just fell in love with watching how a physical therapist would guide movement. It was watching a patient move, and I'm always thinking, what are they watching? What are they looking at? And watching them guide movement and feel movement and know how to guide someone through. And you're on the journey with the client. And I liked that more than, necessarily being in the hospital and maybe not having as much one-on-one time or being able to walk them through their journey as much. And so for me, I just fell in love with the aspect of what physical therapists really do and allowing the person to get to independence within their own body. And so that's when I decided, okay, no matter how many student loans, no matter what I need to do, this is my path. And it's been a crazy journey along the ride. Didn't know that social media was going to be something in my future. Didn't know that I would have my own business. Didn't know that I'd be able to help people all over the world. And yet here I am. And so it's just been an incredible journey.
Oh, I just got chills because it is amazing how much impact that we can have that we never would have been able to have if it weren't for social media or the technology that is right at our fingertips. Like you said, you weren't expecting to have this social media path happen, and look where it got you, and look how many people you're able to impact because of it. That is just awesome. So you mentioned about Pilates. How old were you when you first were doing that? Because I think that's like a pretty young age for you to start learning about the body, right? Because you went to gymnastics and then Pilates, right?
Yeah, so I didn't start probably until I was 18 or 19.
Okay.
So I was in undergrad, and I think I started coaching at 17, and then I saw someone come in around 18, 19, and that's when she was barely building up her business within this gym capacity. She'd already done it in other spaces. And so in order to get more buzz and kind of more people, she allowed coaches to come and take free classes as long as she didn't have a lot of clients. And so I'm like, sign me up. Gotcha. I'll do as much as you want. And I really learned so much from her. A lot of the times it was just her and I one-on-one, and she loved the challenge as well because I was already strong post-gymnast. And so rather than just holding a plank for minutes on end, for me, that was quote unquote easy.
Right.
But she would have me tap into so many different little pieces that I wasn't ever focusing on. And even though I had good form, when I actually focused on what the intention of my body was creating in that plank, it changed the entire thing for me. Mm-hmm. And I remember even one time I would go to yoga classes sometimes at the gym, and I'd always walk out oh, it was a nice stretch, kind of easy, because I was a gymnast, I was already flexible. But when I used her cueing and really reminded myself of all these little pieces that I'm trying to collectively work as I'm moving through movements, I walked out actually sore from yoga for once because I was putting so much more attention and intention into my movement. Mm-hmm. And so from there, it continued to show what is possible and how much I didn't know and how much I wanted to learn and how much the body can adapt and build and gain awareness. And it just continued to inspire me to do more.
Yeah. How do you think we can get people, because I still don't think that, and maybe it's just some people it's not for them about like slowing down. How can we get more people to understand that it doesn't have to be like all out, that like, how do we get them to slow down and like have that mind body connection? Like, what do you think it is that needs to click in this industry for people to understand it's not about throwing weights around all of the time? Like, what do you think needs to happen for that for people to understand?
I think in some cases, like, because there is that competitive aspect of look at how much weight I can do and look at how fast I can do it, or anything like that. And it is fun. Like, you don't want to take that away from someone, right? So I like to say, okay, well, how can we challenge it within the workout then? How long can you hold a pause squat for before you drop all the way down and before you lift all the way up? How much weight can you do? And that's just building time under tension. Or how slow can you drop your squat? How many seconds do you take to get down compared to another person? And if you just start to almost make it competitive and then especially with a coach there, I think it's best, right? Because as we start to slow things down, you'll start to notice a lot more breakdown. And that's one of the things I loved about teaching Pilates. One of the places I actually taught at was combined with a CrossFit gym. And so a lot of the CrossFitters would come over and take Pilates, and they would be dying and shaking and watching these women like just breathing and doing it no problem. And they would kind of get frustrated, like, how is this so hard for me? I'm over there lifting a ton of weight, but I'm over here shaking and can barely do anything. And I think it was just, when you give them that challenge, here's someone who looks like she doesn't lift very much weight, and yet she's holding longer than you are in certain positions, and you give them that challenge, that competitive aspect, that goal to strive for. And especially when someone, like, if you want to gain weight, or not gain weight, but lift more weight, do heavier loads, you have to be willing to explore where your body might break down under tension. Because if we can build those aspects up, you are going to be so much more explosive. You're going to be so much more powerful, and you're going to be lifting a ton more weight. I promise you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so physical therapy can be preventative and it can be like recovery, right? So how much of what you do right now is recovery versus post-workout or even like post-injury? I feel like people associate physical therapy with that side more, like, oh, I hurt my shoulder, so I have to go to a physical therapist. Oh, like I'm injured, this and that. How much of that are you doing versus trying to get people more on the preventative side?
I would always love to push people more to prehab rather than rehab, right? I think that's going to be the continual goal and strive of us as physical therapists to prove why that is beneficial. I think it does take proving it in order to show it. But I like to explain it as, we brush our teeth every day so that we prevent cavities, and so that you prevent having your teeth pulled and all these other things happening within our teeth, and not having to see the dentist, and not having to, or we still want to see the dentist, but not having to go as frequently, right? Or do as much stuff when we're there besides the cleaning. And that's the goal. We're flossing, we're brushing our teeth, we're doing these little tiny practices that really shouldn't take longer than 2 to 5 minutes at a time in order to create benefit in the long run. And that's always my message in terms of what I'm trying to create, is the proof of why doing these little things 2 to 5 minutes every single day, whether it's before a workout, after a workout, just during the day to break up your being at your desk or whatever, these taking time, whether it's mobility, whether it's like just little corrective muscle activations, whatever it may be, if you can add that in, just one in the morning, one while you're working, one before a workout, one after a workout, then you're able to just sprinkle them in without having like an hour of mobility you have to do a day. and really committing to, this is going to allow me to not have to see the doctor as much. This is allow me to get stronger, to move, to lift my kids, to run after, to hike, to do fun things without having to risk potential injury as much. Like, we can't ever prevent injury, but we can build more resilience within our body so that we can tolerate better loads in any unexpected positions. And that's really what we want to do. So I think the goal is always getting people back into understanding why it would be beneficial. And I think we also get to look at, like, rather than just our immediate goals of maybe lifting more weight or losing a certain amount of pounds or getting out of pain, like, what is the ultimate long-term goal, like the really long-term goal of maybe playing with grandkids when you're older, of being able to sit on the ground and stand back up without any help, of being able to go up and down stairs and feel good in doing that. Like, what is a longer term goal and what would it take for you to get there? And I think if we start looking a little bit more ahead as to the realistic goal, the functional goal that actually brings us joy and happiness and fulfillment in life, rather than just the quick, gain or be able to lift a little bit more weight. It's what is that more functional, that more attainable enjoyment that really we can strive for.
Right. And I think you mentioned something really great about, like, sprinkling things in here and there before and after workouts and things like that. But I feel like people are more accountable when they have to actually go and see you or go to the office or go, they're not always going to hold their own selves accountable for doing those small things, like, oh, it's fine, I don't need to stretch, that sort of thing. So in terms of going to see a physical therapist for, just because they want to be doing the right thing, like, and it's probably, like, a lot of it might have to do with health insurance too, maybe. Like, I don't know if that's, like, one of the biggest problems is people are only getting covered if there's, like, an actual issue going on, versus if there's not an issue going on, then maybe they don't have coverage with their insurance to, like, go and just do the preventative type of stuff. Would you say that that's the issue maybe?
I mean, that can deter a lot of people, and that's very hard. If you even had just, say it's a soreness, but maybe you might exasperate it just a little bit in terms of your language in order for them to be able to document that it's a reoccurrent pain that kind of comes up. So maybe it's some soreness in the low back or the achiness in the low back, and it's been consistent, but you've never seen a physical therapist. Maybe you've seen a doctor. Maybe you've done pain management with, different treatments, but you never really saw a physical therapist. I think it's almost in every state now that we can go see a physical therapist without having to go get a referral from an MD. I know there's still a few states where you do have to get a referral from your doctor, but in a lot of states, you could just go see a physical therapist, and a lot of it is covered as long as you do say there's some type of injury. And at least a few visits should be covered. You might have to pay a little copay. Really, you can call the back of your insurance card and see what they cover. But if you could at least save up for going 1 to 2 times of whatever your copay would be, it's a great way to be able to tell the therapist, hey, listen, like, real talk, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. I'm only going to be able to see you 1 or 2 times. And I know that's not maybe ideal, but I want you to assess me and really be able to give me the tools that I can take home and improve upon, that I can take home and really do on my own. So I don't necessarily need the ultrasound. I don't necessarily need the heat packs or the back rub or the massage. Although they can help with my symptoms, I need something that I'm going to be able to take more long term. And I think if people went in empowered to ask for what they need and what they want, a physical therapist should be able to look at you, assess what is not working very well and what could be more efficient or work a little bit better, and provide you with the tools. Like, that's what us as physical therapists, we prescribe movement. We don't prescribe medication. Movement is literally our only medicine. So if you're only going to see a physical therapist for electrical stimulation and for ultrasound and massage, they're not doing their job, because those are quick not even fixes, I would say, because they don't fix anything. They just help to temporarily relieve symptoms of pain.
Right.
But that's not going to relieve the cause of where that pain came from unless you are doing movement and exercise in order to actually get to the root cause.
Right. Yeah. And it's not like a personal trainer where you can come train with me like 3 times a week. You know, you can't really do the same with your physical therapist. Like, hey, can we stretch 3 times a week or do whatever movements together? And I would love for that to be the case.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. And I think more people would do it if it was more accessible in that way. But, you know, I'm not even sure. I'm sure costs vary dependent upon like insurance and who you're seeing and what the issue is and everything like that. So, but that's really good advice too, just for those who, you know, maybe that was the reason that was deterring them from going. So I appreciate you answering that. How did you start building your own brand, and when did you start getting like partnerships and monetizing your own business and ideas and content and things like that? What really was the jump off for you? What happened?
Yeah. I mean, that was just kind of crazy. As I said, you know, I never intended to even have a social media presence. I created a social media on Instagram because my friends were and my family were. And so I was like, okay, let me just see what happens. And I was just posting, you know, photos with friends. And then occasionally I would post with, I would post some of my workouts. So whether that was like pull-ups on the bars or leg lifts or anything like that. And I knew there was a calisthenic community that was kind of building and that would do a lot of outdoor workouts. And so I started tagging some of those pages until one day one of them reached out and said, hey, we all work out in Venice. You should come down. And at the time he had like 300,000 followers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is reaching out to me. And I went down to Venice to work out with a bunch of dudes, and it was so much fun. The community was so open, so caring, so supportive. And it was a really cool experience. So from there, this particular page would post other people within the calisthenic community and anyone who was kind of within that community. So he started posting me, and naturally I just started getting followers. It was just people started coming to my page, and I decided, okay, I guess I was in grad school at the time too. And so I just decided, I guess I'll just start posting about calisthenics because that's where people are following me from. And he had asked me to compete for the World Calisthenic Organization as well. And I agreed. And so I just decided to show kind of my journey of where I was training, what I was doing, how I was moving my body, how I was getting strong for it. And as that continued to grow, I got little sponsorships, whether it was like supplement companies or little deals that people wanted to work with. But it wasn't until I got the opportunity to shoot with Strong Magazine that I realized, I mean, luckily I had already graduated. I was working at a clinic, and I just realized I'm so lucky that this happens to be on a weekend, because if it was during the week, I don't know that I can just take off work and go shoot for a magazine. And it was actually in that moment that I realized, why am I at my job still? I can still help and treat clients on my own, not within a clinic, because now, like I said, we don't have to have referral from NDs. We can work privately. And so I just realized that, you know, now is my opportunity. I have no idea what I'm really going to do, where I'm going to work, but I'm just going to tell them that I need to, you know, leave the clinic. And I remember texting my bosses right then and just saying, like, I need to go and I need to try this on. And I only gave them a week's notice because I already had clients on the side that were kind of building up. And so from there, I just continued to realize that even though there was little companies that wanted to work with me, it was my own stuff that really people wanted to see. And so rather than, even though my own clientele was building up and it was great and I loved being able to help people, I realized, you know, who's going to actually save my Instagram thing? Is it actually going to be what they need for their bodies? And would they continue and do it later? And so I realized, there's only so much limitation that you can post on Instagram and social media that people may or may not get help from. It may or may not be what they need. And so I just decided to launch my own product in November of 2017 and create a course. And all of these things have just kind of happened based on this is what seems to people are coming to me. Oh, people need help. People need inspiration. Oh, people need this. And everything's just kind of fallen in the line of listening. And I'm very grateful for that. It's weird to say, I know most entrepreneurs are out here saying, I intended for this. I made a goal. I marked it. And I'm out here saying, I had no idea this was going to happen. I just listened to whatever was coming at me. But I'm so appreciative of the journey, and it's led me into places that feel very authentic, never forced, very much in line with what people are needing. And it only continues to show based on the feedback that I receive. So I'm so extremely grateful.
Yeah, that's something that we hear all the time about, these types of success stories, is just providing value and being authentic to yourself. Some of the things like you mentioned, little businesses or brands would reach out to you to do partnerships or sponsorships or whatever the case may be. And that's something that for me personally, I'll have maybe someone reach out about something, but if it doesn't align with me, or if it's something that I haven't used personally, then I'm like, no. So
yeah.
I'm wondering, because you see influencers, right? And they're posting all of these different brands and supplements or whatever the case is. And it's like, are they actually using them? Is this just for paid content? And you want to be true to yourself, but you also want to grow and not turn everything down. So how do you find that balance of what to say yes to and what to turn down, especially if you're just still, I don't want to say a nobody because everybody's a somebody, but when people don't recognize you yet, or when, you're still just starting out and you don't have a big support system, either through social media or even personally. Like for me, it's just me. I don't have a partner. I don't have a team. It's, just out here, every woman for herself hustling. And it's such a competitive industry, right? Everywhere you look, especially now with COVID-19 and people trying to put out content virtually. Where do you find the things to say yes to and the things to turn down and grow from that point of view?
I really think there's a lot of self-assessment that has to go into that whole process, because it depends. What is the energy that I'm putting out for this product? Is it an energy that's going to return to me? So whether that's monetary, or whether that is you really are seeing that you're helping people, or it doesn't feel like a whole energy suck to have to create something for this company that doesn't feel good to you. I always notice that when it feels like, oh my God, I need to do this content. Oh, I need to do this for this other company. Then it's no longer in alignment, because it should feel fun. It should feel not necessarily always fun. You're still creating and having to do things, but also you want to make sure that it's something that you can maintain, that when you post about it, when you talk about it, it's still going to feel authentic, because that's ultimately what you want. And you have to also, I think you also have to just say, what is my goal in wanting to work with these people? Is it that they have a bigger following than I do, so it would be better exposure for me? That could be a possibility. Is it that there's going to be a great compensation because we're going to be helping each other out? And so there's a good win-win. I'll make some money. They sell some products. Or is it just because I think other people, that are associated with that company have been doing it, so I should do it because those other people? Then I think we kind of lose ourselves, because we get into this comparison mode, I'm doing it because I want to be at that status.
Yeah.
And not that that's bad. I know a lot of people who do a lot of things because they want to be in the inner circle of certain people. But we also have to, I think, in my own personal opinions, really evaluate, what is that going to do for me? Because that's a huge energy suck just to be seen, but not to give.
Right.
That's a very for me kind of attitude, and people can kind of feel that, and it doesn't always come off very great, and it's going to end up taking you a lot of energy because you're working so externally for something rather than internally of really giving. So I would just be so careful. I would say take on what you can tolerate. So if you know that you can create this whole content calendar and it fits within what you're doing and you feel good about creating it, it's something that you love using, great. I would say definitely do it. And it's okay to try things out and learn that it's not for you. Right. I think that's okay. Giving yourself the grace to learn along the journey is so incredibly important. I remember when I took on my first sponsor for a protein company and I was an ambassador. This was way back in the day. And it was fun because it was like my whole calisthenic community was basically a part of it. So I was like, yeah, I get to play with my friends and create content. Like for me, that felt like a win because that's all I was focusing on. And I was having the protein. As I learned more about food and my body, I started to not take the protein. And so I told the company that I needed to step away. And for me, that was just something that, if I can no longer take it, if I can no longer speak into it, I really shouldn't be promoting this product anymore. Right. I can still see my friends, I can still play with them and create content, but it's not in alignment anymore. And so I knew when it was time to pull away from that. Again, not a bad thing. I didn't know, enough when I took it on. And I took it on for the reason of having fun and being with my friends rather than really health. I just thought, this is a fun protein company.
Right. Exactly.
And over time, it's just continued to evolve. And when I didn't have a lot of help, I could not take on a lot of content. I just couldn't. I would get super overwhelmed. Even if I loved the product, I couldn't just always, I want to give my own stuff and teach in my own ways. And so I can't always take on so much of other people unless I have help. And now that I have more help, I have been able to take on a bit more structure, my whole month out of what it's going to look like with that and be a little bit more committed. But, I think grace, intention, and really coming back to shutting out what the noise is doing and what it's supposed to look like, what you're supposed to be doing, and just saying what is true for me.
And on the flip side of that, though, because for me personally, a lot of the beginning stages of launching my own independent training service, it's a lot of working for free. A lot of things that I would do is just because, I love what I do. So it's like, would I do this still if I wasn't getting paid for it? And obviously I would, because I'm still doing it and I love doing it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, where do you draw that line? When do you stop working for free as much if you're still not getting, the value that you deserve? Or even going back to brands and products and trying to get partnerships and that sort of way. When do you say no to, okay, I use this, it's authentic to me, whether it's activewear, whether it's, a supplement or something like that. I was like, okay, well, since people are starting to reach out about things that I don't even know about, or I don't even know if they're real or I trust them, why don't I start reaching out to the products that I do use? And you hear no, like everyone tells you no. So you're working pretty much a lot for free or very little, and you're promoting these other brands and services, or whatever the case is, basically for free because it's authentic to you and you like it and you like doing that. But where do you draw the line to say, maybe I have to go in a different direction if it isn't working out? Or is it just a matter of consistency? Keep going, keep doing it, which I hear a lot. Don't give up, just keep at it. What's your thought there?
It could be very daunting and energy sucking, kind of like I said, but I think it's both of those, right? So yes, it's a matter of continuing to go, but it's also what needs to shift. So if I continue to hear no, what am I saying in the way that I'm presenting myself, and how can I present myself in the way that someone you can think of who you would not say no to? Sometimes, especially as women, it's, we come from so much heart, and which is so great, right? But then we end up not really standing in our power in terms of how much we're really worth, or saying the things that we know to be true of what we can create, what we can do, why we're valuable. But we want to be humble sometimes. So I shouldn't brag about that. I shouldn't like talk in so confidently. I should be, confident but humble. And you're always trying to walk this line.
And imposter syndrome, which is like something that I've dealt with too. It's like, why am I giving these people advice? Like,
of course. I still deal with imposter syndrome. Are you kidding me? Always. And so knowing that that's not necessarily going to go away, now what? If I'm always going to feel like, why me? Is this really who I am? How can I embody someone else when I'm sending the message? So how can I be that? And it could be whoever you want. It could be Wonder Woman. Like, how do I empower this kind of flip within my body of saying what it is that I do, being very clear, very, very stern, showing value. I mean, that's what a company wants to see. What value do you bring me that we can have a win-win relationship that would be reciprocated, right? Because I'm not just going to give you free content if I don't feel like it's going to do anything.
Right.
So maybe it's not just about you posting the free content for people to see, but it's also creating creative content that they then can use for reels, that they then can use for their own graphics, for their own stuff. And you show the value and why that is going to not only be something that's different than what they receive, but something that's valuable to their company to help them, right? Because they want help as well, and they want to build that relationship as well. And so I think we have to embody someone that, and sometimes also, like me and my girlfriend, when we were just starting out and it was just us, we created a manager email and from someone else. And that was us. But we would write it as if it was someone else who was supporting us.
Wow. Okay.
And so already it looks like, oh, this person, it's the appearance of this person has their stuff together. They have this manager who's helping them out, who can talk maybe a little bit more sternly than you would feel comfortable with yourself, and just lay it out in terms of what I do, what this person is worth, why it's worth it. And really standing confidently in that, I think, is just something that, and then you get to see, like, is it worth me continuing to bring up in my stories or on my feed? If it's not worth it anymore, that's okay. I can still sprinkle it in when it feels good to me, but I'm just not going to keep pushing it if the value of the product doesn't really see it, or if the people that I'm sharing it to also aren't really responding to it or feeling like they're getting help. And you can even ask your audience. I think that's so powerful, and it's a great way to be able to go to a company like, oh, I asked my audience what they needed, and these are the kinds of products that they talked about. And so if we work together, I know that there are going to be people who are looking for this particular brand or looking for this particular product. And so you doing your own research, you coming just, again, as confidently as you can step in, whether that's creating a fake manager or living into it in yourself. Like, if you can live into it yourself, I think that's the best way.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think depending on, who you're around, like, I feel like our personalities can change, especially, like, have you ever heard of the customer service voice? If you get on the phone with someone, your voice changes, or even probably on this podcast, when we take our headphones off, we're probably much different or lax in, our own personal surroundings. So I think it's great to know, like, if you can turn it on in what situations it's appropriate, and to feel empowered to make your voice heard, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's awesome. I love that advice. Speaking of content, how do you organize your content? Because I know it can be so much, whether it's different platforms or, posts or your podcasts.
For my own personal Instagram, it's still a little bit of a hush-posh of thinking on the go or asking questions for the week. I love asking, like, my audience or, my friends on social media what they want to see and what they are needing in their bodies, because then it guides me into like, oh, I haven't done something on that for a while, so let me do a post on that. So it just helps me to get clear on like what I want to do. I try to set it up for the week. I also have 2 podcasts that come out a week, so I kind of create content around those podcasts in order to push toward the podcast from my Instagram. And then for YouTube, we do 1 video from the podcast a week. I just batched a bunch of 17 videos in a day with someone. So I'll be dropping those out once a week, once those are edited. But as far as my personal Instagram, it's really just, I need to feel inspired. I need to feel like the content I'm going to put out is going to be really good. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit fresh. It's going to be what people want to see. And I think what's also important to note is that my content has continued to shift with the social media. You know, like it's not, if you look way back, you're going to see a lot of videos that have half a screen of anatomy and half of a video, because those are what did really well back then. People like to see the anatomical picture and then, you know, an X on the shoulder or something that was very visual. And then here's the video right next to it of how it can help. Nowadays, it feels like, and then it kind of shifted to IGTVs, a little bit longer, maybe 1:30, maybe 2 minutes. And I can talk and explain things a little bit more. And those did really well. And then it went to kind of like the carousel of the swipe throughs, and people just want to have a shorter attention span. So give me like 10 to 15 seconds of things that I could just swipe through. Great. Yeah. And now it's kind of shifted to reels. Give me 15 to 30 seconds only of something, right? And rather than being like, oh, this is so exhausting, it's more of how can I get creative and still give value within what people are absorbing? Because if I really want to help people, I have to meet them where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important, rather than fighting it, rather than being, but my pretty pictures used to do so well, and now I actually have to educate. Well, that's okay. You can still post pretty pictures and educate, and do a video and do a reel. Like, how can you get creative in where things are shifting in order to provide value? And it's, as a physical therapist, our whole thing is meeting a client where they're at. If they come in and they say, I know that the ultrasound helped me last time. Well, okay, I'm not going to tell you it's all BS. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to continue to educate on why movement and why these different things are going to help within the body as well. I'm going to meet you where you are to be able to absorb what's actually going to help later on down the road. So I think it's so important that we continue to view social media as the same rather than being resistant to it. This is an opportunity for creativity. This is an opportunity for shifting. And what else can I do?
Right. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever have you heard, I'm sure you follow Gary Vee. And so something that he always says that stuck out to me is document. Instead of trying to pre-create everything, just do it as you go. But I don't feel like everyone lives in that environment where they feel comfortable. Just like, people are always on their stories and like up close and personal. So it's like trying to find that balance between real life. This is everyday life. Like, let me get on stories and talk to people in the moment versus let me create something and post it later. So like, I'm always stuck in that limbo of like, okay, how personal do I want to get on here? Because you want to build real connection with people if you want to grow and be relatable. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not really in the best environment to just document my whole life. So it's, just trying to figure out like the balance between personal and business, which I feel like your page primarily is just, you'll sprinkle in sometimes. I saw that you got engaged, I think recently. Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On that. So that's nice to see. And then, but most of it is just the physical therapy stuff. So is that like a personal choice for you, kind of keeping personal life completely separate? Or how do you find that you connect with people more genuinely or authentically?
Man, I feel like I put my life out there quite aggressively. Especially 2 years ago, I was very public about a public breakup because I knew that there are a lot of women who can relate with what I went through. And rather than, getting stuck in a story of what's wrong with me and why did this happen to me, I felt freedom in that moment when I had found out everything and released that relationship. So for me, it was so important to speak about it. So I went on podcasts very publicly. I spoke about it. I posted on Instagram. And what was incredible was getting the thousands and thousands and thousands of women and men sometimes who reached out to me with their own stories. And I still to today get people who reach out to me struggling with some of those same things. And so I am so open to walking the journey with people. And I do think that's a part of healing. That's a part of pain. That's a part of the body. And if people don't see it that way, that's okay. But I'm going to continue to speak into what's personal, what's growth, what's my journey been like. And I just appreciate that I've always been able to sprinkle that in. So that's why I'll still show Dom and I. Sometimes I'll still show, like I showed our proposal. I showed when we met. I showed everything along the journey and where my growth mindset has been along the way to be able to recover from something that was very traumatic to being in an engaged, happy, thriving relationship, and the possibilities. And that's always my mindset is not that I just want to show my life to show my life. I want to show my life to empower people of the possibilities of what's possible. And so that's why I want to continue to show, some of my handstand stuff. I'll show my press handstands. I'll show my fun things. And it's not just to show off. It's to say, this is what's possible within the body.
Yeah.
Like there's always more. And some people, they don't like it. And that's okay. I'm going to say, I'm sorry that you don't feel comfortable with it. And I'm going to continue to show what's possible because this goes hand in hand with how we heal. This goes hand in hand with the mind body. This is everything. And so, I think being able to show that, like, even if you feel like you're not in a place because of how it looks or whatever it may be, that you can show off your life, that is so relatable. Like it really is so relatable. And the more consistent you are with anything, the more trust you're going to build with people. And I think that is so important. So it's like, if I am showing or giving you exercise examples of what you should do for your body, I better be on story showing you that I work out, showing you that I do mobility, showing you what I do on my everyday, showing you that, I don't just work sitting at a desk. I sometimes lay on the couch. I sometimes sit at the coffee table. I mix it up. Like, you need to be the example of what you're putting out there, I believe. And so even if it's like, let me put on this time lapse and show a quick, like making a smoothie, making a meal, like, let me show what is possible, because you show the possibilities, you show the empowerment, and you continue to build that trust of consistency. Like one of my friends, she's amazing. And she would post every morning lifting her cat up and walking around the home because she does this like ritual of like gratitude for everything that we have. And it's just her and her cat. But she would do that every morning. And that was like something that people trusted was going to happen. Like, I know that she's going to show gratitude and walk around her entire apartment with her cat overhead, which looks a little funny, but that's the way that she's embracing gratitude of what she has.
Yeah.
And no matter what it is, the smallest practices, the more that we show what we're doing for ourselves in what we're putting out into the world. So whether that is empowerment in the body, empowerment in the mind, empowerment in wellness, whatever that looks like, show that you're doing it more than just needing to talk to the camera, more than needing, any of that. Like, yes, we want people to feel who we are, but I think it's important to show the consistency in what we do, because it's what we do that really generates who we are, that really generates what we enjoy. And that's just like the saying that I'm living into is, what are the actions that I'm actually doing that creates who I'm being in order to enjoy this life that I have?
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. I wasn't aware of you opening up about the situation that you experienced in your relationship. And I think a lot of people probably have, or they do definitely have similar situations. And especially if it's like so new or like in the moment, it's very hard to speak about in the moment. But I feel like after time, people get more comfortable with it. For me, I know I'm going to write a book someday. A lot of what I want to write about is very personal. So it's trying to figure out that timeline and also respecting real people who are in that story and trying to figure out, okay, do I have to change names? How am I going to set this story up so that it's not I forget the movie. There was a movie where there was a book written about the town, and then people could actually, once they started reading more about it, they were like, oh, we know who that is. And then they like figured out that it was so-and-so. That's like my worst nightmare is if I'm writing this book about real life scenarios, are people going to eventually put two and two together and figure out who it is? So I don't know that. Should I or shouldn't I? Or like, should I totally change the story if you're writing about something so personal or, opening up about something so personal?
What I did personally, I didn't name any names. People could guess if they had followed me for over 3 years. I didn't name any names. I just said my experience. And I said my experience because of what I know that people go through by experiencing a similar story. And I think we get to step forward in that vulnerability, knowing that so many people go through something so similar. Like, it's not about the person. It's not about, the drama of what happened. It's about the story and the lessons that have unfolded because of it. It's because of who I can step into being because of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just think it's so powerful, so powerful when people share their stories. Dom and I did a podcast where like he interviewed me one time and then I interviewed him and we talked about our own pain journeys, and Dom opened up about, like urge incontinence and feeling the need to go to the bathroom. And as a man, talking about any pelvic floor issues can feel very scary. Yeah. But him doing that just opened the door for so many people to be able to come to him and say, okay, what do I do? I've felt the same thing. That's been something. I mean, it's not a regular talk that people can talk about. And I feel like even in personal stories, a lot of times we don't want to share that. I had people who came to me who said, I've never told anyone that I experienced the same thing. And it just breaks my heart. And so when we give permission for people to feel, when we give permission for people to go and process through the journey by showing what's possible from us doing it, I think it way outweighs anyone saying, oh, it was this person, because that is going to go away so quickly, like so quickly. And that's what I always said when people put two and two together and they're like trying to trash that person. I'm like, people are going to care for 2 seconds. It's not going to do anything to their career. It's not going to do and that wasn't my intention. My intention was never to trash the person. It was always to lead through what is possible from the outcome. Right. And so even if people connect it, they're going to forget about it. Yeah. But the lessons in which people can learn from it are going to outweigh and can outlast any of the other stuff. So I say, go for it.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's fear of also not just people knowing, but also what's going to happen to me. Like, what are people going to say about me? But yeah, it's definitely something that the reward much outweighs the risk, and of just, it's not even really risky. It's just other people's thoughts and opinions that don't really matter.
Exactly. And that's why I wear this and it says my truth on it. Okay. Because as long as I'm living into my truth, no matter what anyone else says has no effect on me and my heart.
Yes, that's my love truth. That. So good. Okay, so this went way different than I thought it was. And I love it. I mean, it's totally great because, I like the ebb and flow. And that's what I try and do on my podcast, because I really just get to know people and build like a foundation and like a friendship and just learn from people. So I'm really excited, but I do want to just end with a couple of just straightforward questions, like 1 or 2 answers, 1 sentences. So let's start with, what are the top 3 mistakes that people make daily that lead to pain in their body?
Number 1, I will say, is not moving enough. We're always trying to find the one perfect position, the one perfect sitting position, the one perfect standing. And it's like, none of that matters. Just keep moving. That's really the most important thing. Number 2, I will say, is not paying attention enough to the breath. So where are you actually breathing from? A lot of times I like to get people to look in front of a mirror and see where their breath is guiding from. If your neck is turning on a lot, if your shoulders are rising, you're probably staying in a lot of stress a lot of time throughout the day. And that's just simple breathing, right? And so if we can get our body to engage with our lower abdomen, the sides of our rib cage, and start to put the pressure and elongation down rather than up, we're going to help to get out of stress a lot more throughout the day, which is ultimately going to get out of tension, get out of pain, get out of tightness. And then the last thing I will say is shifting the gaze, because a lot of times we're looking pinpointed at a screen, at a computer, at a TV. But that itself, when we focus in on one thing, we are still staying in a very sympathetic state, which means we're always on fight, flight, freeze. Even if you don't feel like it, you might be relaxing, watching cat videos. But if your eyes are still gazed on one point and not looking outside, not taking in a view, not looking at a sunset, we're staying in a sympathetic state. And so again, being able to switch your state, turn on and get into a more relaxed state is really one of the best things you can do to heal pain in the body.
Wow. Okay. So move more, focus on your breath, and shift your gaze. Love it. Okay. What is the best advice you have ever received?
Man, that's a big one.
I know. I mean, it doesn't have to be the best, but like, if you can think of like some great advice you've ever received, what would that be?
There was a time where I felt like I couldn't cry, I couldn't have emotions, because then I was weak, or someone couldn't talk to me, or it was wrong, it was bad. And when someone told me, because they could feel and sense that I was like getting emotional, but I'm like trying to get off the phone and not speak. And she said, it is okay to cry. You can cry, you can feel. And that, just giving myself the permission to feel it in order to free it, was one of the greatest things. And no one should ever make you feel bad about your emotions that you carry.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that answer. So good. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that one. Okay, next question. What book are you currently reading?
I am bad. I don't have a book right now, but the one that I do want to read is called Breathe. It's a kind of a new book, but it's all about the breath, and I continue to learn about it, and I continue to want to learn about it. So that is the book that
awesome. I
will be diving into.
I'm currently reading Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. I love him. So if you need another book recommendation, I recommend that one. It kind of like goes into that because he talks a lot about like the breath and everything. So you might like that. Okay, final question. If there's one thing people should know about physical therapy, what should it be?
I would say that it's not about what people are doing to you that creates the real change, but it's what people provide you that really, truly helps to make lasting change. So it's not about the hands-on, it's not about the manipulation, it's not about the tools and the fancy gadgets, but it's about what they provide you that you do on your own that is truly going to make the best and most efficient benefit within your body.
I love it. So it holds them accountable. They have to be the one that makes the change. No one can change for them, right?
No, a physical therapist cannot fix you. They can only guide you.
Yes, I love it. Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. Those are kind of my final few questions that I had for you. But I absolutely loved speaking with you, and I feel like I could talk to you forever about so many more things. So hopefully we can stay connected. And just thank you so much for coming on and saying yes, and just allowing me to be authentic and open with you. It felt like a great conversation. So thank you.
Of course. That's always what I want to create. Just cool conversations.
Yes, I love it.
And that does it, guys. Thank you so much for listening through to the end of that episode. I hope you'll share this with your friends, your family, and your network so we can continue growing this community even more and hear the stories that have yet to be told. Please let me know your thoughts too. Reach out. Tell me what you've learned. Tell me what's resonated with you. And let me know who you want to hear from next. I can't wait to talk to you guys soon.